Episode 63, Imagination and Inspiration. Good evening, I am Tomas Guevara, and this is the channel Rewriting the Reality. In today's episode we are going to talk about imagination. Subscribe to this channel so you can expand your awareness. First, let me explain that imagination is quite real also. Imagination is an avenue of communication that we offer ourselves, and whatever we may imagine is reality in some capacity of consciousness, for it may not be imagined if we have not created it. Therefore, it is quite real. All that exists is not necessarily inserted into our actual physical dimension. This is not to say that it is not quite real and that it does not exist. We as essences incorporate the ability, in like manner to every other essence within consciousness, to move our attention from one dimension to another, to one area of consciousness to another, and in this allowing ourselves to project, which is what we are accomplishing in our interaction in relation to any place or dimensions, so to speak. To start our imagination first we must allow ourselves to relax our energy and move our attention, which once again is quite significant, especially in association with this shift in consciousness. For this is an aspect of widening our awareness, allowing ourselves the freedom to move outside of our beliefs concerning singularity and from the strong focused attention of our physical dimension, that is a tightly separation from other dimensions and areas of consciousness. This also allows us to view, experience and participate in interactions with each other in different realities and different areas of consciousness, which reinforces our recognition of ourselves as incorporating much more abilities and freedom than we generally allow ourselves in our objective waking state. Now, let me also express to you, another significance of allowance of this type of movement is that it reinforces our knowing of ourselves as essence and our abilities to generate anything we desire. Now, this is significant, for in practicing and allowing ourselves playfulness in other realities, we may also translate that type of movement into this reality and recognize that we incorporate the same abilities. If we are allowing ourselves, and generating the trust and acceptance of ourselves, and incorporating that type of playfulness with ourselves and each other, we may create that type of reality in this physical dimension. As I have expressed previously, in widening our awareness, one of the byproducts of that action is piercing these veils of separation and allowing ourselves the recognition of the interaction with, and the knowing of other aspects of ourselves as essence, other focuses of ourselves within other physical dimensions and in other areas of consciousness that may not necessarily be physically manifest, for we are tremendously more vast as essence than we generally recognize. As I have expressed, we shall not imagine a manifestation or an expression if it does not exist or if we have not actually created that. A physical dimension that we can allow ourselves to tap into and to be playing with is one that incorporates many of these manifestations that we consider as folklore and fantasy, with many unusual manifestations that we term to be creatures such as dragons and nymphs, minotaurs, many different types of fantasy creatures. In actuality, they are not creatures, and they communicate, and they are playful, and they actually occupy an actual physical dimension. Understand that individuals, especially children, that interact with what we consider to be fairies should not necessarily be dismissed so very quickly, for these also are manifestations within that physical dimension. They do not occupy our physical reality, but this is not to say that we may not tap into that physical reality and be interactive with them, for they are other manifestations of our essence, therefore, they are aspects of ourselves. Children usually call them invisible friends. It is important to recognize that imagination is an avenue of communication, but it is an inspiring avenue of communication. In listening to any of our avenues of communication, although they do not in themselves create our reality, they do offer us information and inspiration in which they influence our choices, and we allow ourselves, if we are listening to our communications, to be generating choices in association with those communications, which allows us to generate what we want, and this is the point. Imagination is quite real, and it is an interesting communication, for it is quite creative and inspiring. Therefore, it also may, if we are allowing, influence us, in a manner of speaking, to stretch our boundaries at times. I have said many times previously, imagination is reality. It is not what you define it to be. In this, what we are giving birth to in movement with this shift, is a new redefining of the communication of imagination and a new freedom to its expression that you shall allow yourself to listen to and pay attention to, for this shall offer you the expression of and the avenue to realize, and objectively recognize those choices that you now view to be hidden from you or removed from you, that you are desperately searching for. They are already within your awareness. You are merely not paying attention to their expressions in similar manner to watching a specific activity that may be occurring outside of yourself, an event that may be occurring. Here is an example. You may be physically engaging your attention watching an activity that may be occurring upon your street, perhaps other individuals dancing and engaging musical instruments, and you occupy your attention watching these individuals creating their movements. Simultaneously, within your periphery but not engaging your attention, to the side of your vision may be an individual that is moving in your direction and is moving in a manner to gain your attention to offer to you an expression of connection or friendship, a stranger, but you are not paying attention to the stranger in your periphery, you are paying attention to the dancers and the musicians. This is not to say that the stranger approaching bearing gifts for you does not exist, the stranger exists and is present, but your attention is occupied watching this other activity. In similar manner, the avenue of communication of imagination is present, and it is expressing its communication. Your attention is merely unfamiliar with listening to its communication in certain arenas, so to speak. Now you are creating the movement of emergence, the birth of new imagination in relation to areas of your focus that you have not associated this expression with previously, which shall offer you wondrous new choices and freedom within your expressions of your creativity. Now, let us view the hypothetical scenario once again. What I am expressing to you is not that you need to turn your attention away from the minstrels and the dancers, but to be incorporating the allowance of the stranger to approach and the gifts that this stranger bears and share the experience of the minstrels and the dancers with the new stranger. Creating the movement of emergence, the birth of new imagination in relation to areas of your focus that you have not associated this expression with previously, which shall offer you wondrous new choices and freedom within your expressions of your creativity. Allow yourself permission to continue in the choice that you have engaged in and expand by also allowing and welcoming the new stranger of imagination that may provide a new communication to you, of new expressions of creativity that you may be incorporating in the moments in which you are now incorporating boredom. Within what you have chosen, allow your imagination to soar, and you shall also offer tremendous choices to be incorporated into the movement that you are already incorporating as comfortable. Look at your job, which you view as your job within your focus, and in that action, you are offering yourself the opportunity to meet the new expression of imagination to be incorporated in your job. We are emerging into new choices and freedom, which is unfamiliar to us. It is not necessarily an emergence that incorporates fear, but it does incorporate unfamiliarity and what we objectively view as unknown expressions. We are redefining elements within our reality, therefore, we are also actually altering our reality. Our actual physical reality is altering. Now, let's get into another subject. Even when it seems that you are doing nothing, you are creating something, you are doing something. You are never doing nothing. It is impossible for you to do nothing, because you are consciousness, therefore you are always in motion. You are always moving, you are always doing, and you are always choosing. Every moment is a choice. I repeat, every moment is a choice. Probably, you might not be aware of what you are doing, and therefore you might think that you are doing nothing and you are creating something magically, which surprises you and can be fun and can be in itself inspiring. But the idea or the statement that you create from nothing is false. You don't. You are always doing something. But as to imagination and inspiration and imagining something and projecting energy in relation to what you are imagining, and in your terms drawing to you, or your imagination meeting you halfway, I would say is that it isn't that some outside energy is meeting you halfway, that would suggest or imply that some other source is creating part of your reality, that you are co-creating reality with some other source, and you aren't. But I do understand how it seems to be that type of situation, or that you could interpret in that manner, that you might have an inspiration, and you might be imagining and projecting an energy, and then at times it may seem that you magically create what you are imagining. Which, in a manner of speaking, you are, because that is what magic is the expression of creating what you don't expect or what is beyond what your senses tell you in their absoluteness. Therefore, it is surprising, for magic seems to be the creation of what seems to be impossible. What I would say is, in that respect you are creating magically somewhat frequently, because you aren't necessarily objectively aware of what you are doing that moves you in a direction of what you are creating. But in relation to imagination, remember, imagination is an avenue of communication. Imagination doesn't create your reality any more than thought creates your reality, any more than emotion creates your reality. They are avenues of communication or translating mechanisms. What creates your reality is your perception. Now in this, your imagination, being an avenue of communication, is valuable because anything that you can imagine exists. It may not exist in this reality, but it does exist. Therefore, regardless of how bizarre or how strange or how improbable what you are imagining may seem to be, anything you can imagine exists. Your imagination is, in a manner of speaking, an endless library. It houses everything that ever has been. Everything that has ever been created, everything that has ever been conceived, everything that has ever been expressed is held in your imagination. Therefore, it is an enormous, endless library. In that, you have access to endless information. And in that endless information, dependent upon what your individual interests are and what your exploration is, that information, those communications from imagination, can spark inspiration. Inspiration is new. Inspiration is what you do with something that already exists, and you add to it in some manner and therefore create something new. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will be a new physical manifestation, it may be a new idea. But whatever it is, inspiration is your response to imagination, to what already exists and altering it in some manner to create your own expression in something new. Even if it bears resemblance to what you imagine, the inspiration changes it and creates some new aspect of that imagination, and therefore it does create something new. In that, it isn't necessarily that some outside source is being pulled to you and is meeting you halfway, so to speak. It is that you are engaging your imagination, that avenue of communication, and you are doing something with it. And in that, you are creating something new from it. I hope that you will start using your imagination more frequently and that you surprise yourself with new creations. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel.